it was weird because the show ended and I went to school. I moved to New York, kind of just like Sean did, but actually went to college there. So I was looking forward to something different, you know, and to being an adult in a new context. And but it's hard to escape Boy Meets World when, you know, kids get out at 3 o'clock of schools in New York and then they're on the subway, you know, asking for my autograph constantly. So I couldn't really get away from it, you know, and the show started becoming more popular after we were off the air, which is really weird, but it was because Disney Channel started running us, you know, all day, every day. And so in a weird way, it became more a part of my life after the show. While we were working on the show, we kind of felt like we were isolated. You know, there wasn't as much contact with fans and the audience as there was like around 2004. So 4 years after, I felt more inundated with fans and like it was a bigger part of my life than it had been before that. And as far as professionally, acting-wise, it was the same way. I started, you know, I would go in for film auditions in New York. Like when I auditioned for Eli Roth for Cabin Fever, he had no clue who I was. You know, so here I was sort of feeling like coming off this TV show, and I walk into this indie horror film that, you know, he had no clue. So in some ways I liked that, because it was like, all right, here, you're going to take me on my own merit, and you're going to cast me based on my acting and not because you think you can capitalize on this momentum or something. But then, of course, like I was saying, Boy Meets World caught back up, and it just became, you know, it became kind of inescapable and wonderful to have people recognize you on the street. You know, especially as a teenager, when people recognize you when they're teens, it's different than when they're in their 20s. And so it's been really nice lately to have people like adults recognizing us and coming up and saying, hey, I grew up with you. You know, that's an easier situation to deal with.
Lily Nicksay has had this spectacular life that she's kept hidden. Tell them a little about what you did after Boy.
Well, I lived in Scotland for 8 years, so I went to high school up in the Highlands of Scotland, and I sailed around Europe, and I lived with the Karen tribe in Thailand for a month, and I studied I studied Latin and Ancient Greek at St. Andrews, which was a really wonderful experience, and it's been fabulous moving back to Los Angeles and rediscovering my childhood love of acting, and I just did an episode of The Mentalist. But yeah, it's been a really wonderful time coming back.
You know, I was gonna say, when I did the movie White Chicks, and when it's funny, when I went on the set, the Wayans brothers and other cast members were like, wait, we gotta ask you, you were on Boy Meets World. Can you give me a turn? So everybody watched the show. And people that you would never think in a million years would be fans were just really excited about it.
It was really funny, actually. It's been a while since I've been on the show, and I went to this small boarding school in the Highlands of Scotland, and I started playing bagpipes, and my first day was like, I know, when in Rome. But my first bagpipe lesson, I got in there, and my bagpipe teacher recognized me immediately, and was like, oh my God, Boy Meets World! It was crazy. So even in the far reaches of northern Scotland, Boy Meets World was a big show.
This is incredible, because all of us down here at this end of the table know her as a 4-year-old who would have the line, stop it, and she would say, what's my line? Stop it. What's my line? Sailing around Scotland, living with the tribe. So one of the transitional things that happened after Boy Meets World to me was I was walking down the street in Los Angeles on Ventura Boulevard, and what I did, I had a new girl, 36, 37 years old, comes up and says, I know you. And I'm not on camera, so I'm hardly ever recognized or approached, and which is good. And I said, okay, and she said, I want to thank you for something. And I said, you're welcome, what for? And she said, my father was a high school janitor. And she shook my hand and she walked away. And what the reference was an episode of television where Blake Clark, who played Chet, who was Sean's not great father, comes back to try to bond with him. and becomes a high school janitor, of course humiliates Sean in the process, but Sean at the end of the episode picks up a mop and mops the floor with his father, and they bond. To be able to have such a far-reaching effect all over the world, not just in America, because it plays all over the world, and to touch people in that way was an answer to a question that I had couched, which is, did we have any real value? And we're very, very lucky with all that's gone on, especially lately. Maybe we did, and we're very appreciative.
And I was going to just follow up with what you're asking about the sequel. We're on Twitter sometimes, and I think the most interesting tweets I've gotten are ones that say something about how, and I send them to Michael sometimes, but it's usually, I grew up watching Boy Meets World with my dad, and I'm so excited to watch Girl Meets World with my daughter. And I just think that's such a wonderful, to see how it cross generations. So I think we're really excited about it.
I haven't, but I haven't purposefully. The thing is, and with all apologies to Betsy and to the entire cast, it is simply in the writing of it and in the conception of it, not the same world, not close. What kids know, what I personally told the first panel, what I personally believe enters very little into how the world works, because I look around and I'm astonished every day at what comes out of the four big screens, the television screen, the telephone screen, the movie screen, and the computer screen. And what kids have to understand in those forming heads, it's too much. It's just too much. To compete on a playground in an elementary school, what they need to know, what they feel they need to know, has to be addressed. It has to be written to. I can't come to Betsy to ask how Amy Matthews would have handled it, because at our most conflictive, she was against the marriage and was happy in the end to lose that. We are so beyond that now, and it's unfortunate. The actuality is, it is a challenge for me and for my writing staff to simply document reality and to do it in an entertaining way that I can slip in a lesson without it being thought of as a lesson. So the short answer is, no, I haven't gone to Betsy because I don't know who I can go to for something like this, because you know what, I'm not 20 years old anymore, and I have to take my own lessons into exactly how far we've approached where we should and shouldn't be in this world. That dynamic alone makes the new show worth watching for me.
Well, we're still figuring it out. I mean, I think that the writing and the show has done a wonderful job of staying true to who we are as people. So what's Corey like now? I guess it's what Ben is like now. But as far as the show, or the new show, it's all being worked out. We're really just, we're taking it one step at a time. We're being very cautious, very careful, trying to honor the old show, trying to, as Michael was saying, work within this new dynamic and in this new time that we're all living in. But I do think that people are not just nostalgic, but are eager to watch a type of show like Boy Meets World. And I don't think that there's a lot of shows like that on TV anymore. And I think that in spite of how much things have changed in the world, people still want a show that they can relate to, that's comforting, that makes them laugh, and that's fun, and that they can learn a lesson from. And so I think that that's what we're working on right now, and we're working really hard to make sure that we can pull it off.
I would love there to be another TGIF, and I don't want to monopolize the conversation. I'll simply say that I was approached about redoing a TGIF format, I think that the first thing that has to happen is a realization of children on television. Just track it. After Boy Meets World, after TGIF came off the air, children were persona non grata on primetime network television. So all of a sudden, there were boutique cable channels which catered to this particular audience. All of a sudden, with the advent of the success of Modern Family, which has some kids on it, finally, kids are sort of trickling back if you watch too. I think your question is cyclical. I think everything is cyclical. I think we explore something, you know, we ride the pony until it dies, which is unfortunate. Because I think what happens is, there's a show, there's a clone of that show, there's a clone of the clone of that show, and you lose something of uniqueness in each generation. Boy Meets World was a unique show in its day. The reason I'm saying that Girl Meets World is not Boy Meets World is how do I get up in the morning and think to myself that I'm not doing a unique show of this day? Girl Meets World has got to be about the friendship of these two children as couched by somebody who has been through it and is still confused. That's the lovely. If they're great parents, I got no show. If they're learning in that generation, Ben continues to learn. So does Danielle. Together, they have always been better than separately. That will continue. However, Ben and Danielle, their challenges of what's going on today and how children have to be raised and protected today, those are some pretty extreme challenges. He's not ready. It's funny.
So I was going to say, people are worried that, you know, we might hurt the legacy of Boy Meets World. I hear that a lot. Please don't hurt the legacy of Boy Meets World. But I think it's important to stress that we're not doing Boy Meets World. We're doing Girl Meets World. And I think that this generation grew up with Boy Meets World, and it means something very special to them, as it means something special to us. And we want to try and do something for the next generation. And we want to give them a show that they can grow up with and have their own memories with. And so that's what we're working on. When Ted Lange and Bernie Capel were on the show.
You know, the weirdest one for me was Kristana Loken. Is that her name?
Christiana Loken?
Christiana. She became the Terminator 3, and she was like my overbearing girlfriend, and she was great on the show. But then, like, I sat down in the theater to watch Terminator 3. I was like, oh my god, I'm killing everybody. She was awesome. So that was the most bizarre. For me, like, Brittany Murphy was amazing, and when she came onto our show, we all were like, what is she doing? She is like a genius actor, because she is. She was just so quirky and different, and it was really tragic when I found out that she had died. She was amazing. So I was not surprised to see her instantly achieve huge success after our show, because she always had a real crazy cool quality to her that she brought to our show for comedy, but then it went on into drama really effortlessly.
You know what else? We cast a young actress to play Will's first girlfriend.
I was going to say this.
It was Carrie Russell.
Yes, I kept thinking Felicity. That was the show.
Yeah, she had a couple of lines,
Yeah.
and they said, what do you think of her? I said, she's got great hair. She should never cut that hair.
Well, I remember when she came on the show, and that was Will's first girlfriend, and I think was it the first year? I can't remember. Anyway, they had to kiss, and they got into that kiss. And we all just kind of looked at each other going, I think you made some comment like, that's enough.
Yeah, no, Will is sort of a serial kisser,
Yeah.
because let's talk about Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Oh, gosh, yes.
Was Will's girlfriend for a while. We did the Scream
Yeah.
episode, Jennifer, and if you remember, we got it on camera with that kiss. That just went on way long.
Way longer.
So
And we all
somebody
were
sitting next to
laughing.
me said, cut the kiss. And no, sounds good.
I mean, honestly, I wasn't on the show when they were young, but I started at a young age, and I think people ask that question, and I think you contemplate it, and you always go, gosh, would this that, would this or what? But I think looking back like that, now as I'm getting older, not really the proper thing to do. I mean, we had such an amazing experience, such a different, amazing childhood that I don't think any of us really have any regrets about the way and the experiences, the things that we got to see. That, I mean, we were pretty much adults at a young age, and we got to learn and be around adults, and I think it just helped us grow as people in ways that I don't think we ever would have been able to.
Ryder came to me one day on the set and said, I have to quit. I'm really sorry, I really loved it. This was like year 5. And I have to go now, so long, bye-bye. And, you know, he turned and he went to the door. It was like Columbo. And just as he reached the door, I said, why do you have to quit? He said, because I want to go to college. And I said, what makes you think we can't work out a schedule that you can go to college and still do the show? And he said, you could do that? And I think that what happens is that there is sort of a loss of innocence being basically born and raised on a Hollywood set, that Ryder did not contemplate that, of course, it is not this life versus life. In a proper functioning set where none of your kids ends up knocking off a liquor store, which you haven't yet, right? In a functioning set, all things are possible, and life is possible. So the question begs, you know, the question begs sort of a conflictive answer, which is that we tried very hard that they did not miss anything. And I think we've succeeded. I think that these are, you know, a table full of absolutely lovely people.
That's also a testament to you, though, Michael, as well, and the sets
it is.
That you ran. Because I've had other experiences where, you know, they weren't like that, and a lot of kids are not treated like that. I'm lucky that I had a mom who was crazy about making sure that I remained a child and had school and all that. But Michael set an example that I have not experienced otherwise. So that was really fortunate and very rare for everybody here involved. And the number one question I always get to is, well, how did you do school? Because I went to normal school and college and everything else. Honestly, it's because Boy Meets World and Michael, they allowed me to have everything I wanted to have, you know, as well as being a working young person. It's pretty rare.
You know what? That paid back. That paid back for my family, because Ben went to the Brentwood School in Brentwood, California. And when it came time for my children to go to school, I have a kid on the set. Where are you going to school? Brentwood. Should I send my kids to Brentwood? Absolutely. Introduce us to your favorite teacher. Absolutely. Everything cycles around. And I believe that my kids are better off for going to the particular school that they went to and getting the education that they went to. And as Ben said, Ben ended up going to Stanford. I mean, you know, life lived correctly can be lived on a Hollywood set.
I actually have never spoken to him. That's just me.
Well, you never actually had a line with him on the set.
No, I literally, honestly, the final episode, he actually came over and gave me a hug, and I was like, that's the first time we've had any interaction, I think, the entire time. That's just me, though.
The comedy, for me, Bill's an extraordinary professional. I mean, Bill is Bill. I mean, this is, you know, he's a towering force, and go back to the beginnings of his career, he's got a resume like there isn't a resume. You know, Ryder's talking about Knight Rider, but I know Bill from Broadway and Albee. I know Bill from The Zoo Story. Yeah. I know Bill from A Little Night Music. I mean, Bill, and I mean, I'm leaving off the obvious one, I know him from John Adams, and it's why the school was named John Adams. And you know, Bill's exemplary career causes us, we were different, and Bill is just, you know, a force that you don't think, I think I'll call him up now and ask him about, you know, my girlfriend. It's just, it's not something you discuss with Bill. Yet, I've stayed very close to Bill after Boy Meets World. There's a particular deli that Bill frequents, he calls it the office, in California. And all you have to do is say the word deli to me, and my whole cultural heritage immediately puts me in a seat next to him. And so I would be next to Bill all the time discussing the kids. Bill always asks, how are they? What are they doing now? Say hello. I think that there's a certain line of professionalism that sort of, demarcated Bill. But what an incredible life and career. And as I said, we stay in touch all the time. And he's doing very, very well. He's 85 years old now. And I will tell you one thing about Girl, which is that a set designer on the blackboard in Corey's classroom put a second blackboard, which was this big, a small rectangle, on the chalk holder, in one of the grooves in the chalk holder. And on that second blackboard, it said, do good. And I said, leave it, don't touch it. And it'll stay there. Because, Bill and obviously Corey wrote it, and obviously Bill's teachings of all of these kids and characters will live on always.
There were so many lessons, and we were all pretty well versed in loving and respecting each other. Not that we know every lesson, but I think a lot of the lessons came from our heart too, out in the world.
I never joined a cult.
Yeah.
A moose can't be a ranger.
A moose can't be. No, I think in general, I actually, the relationship between Corey and Topanga, I always thought was wonderful. And I love the idea that, you could find love. And I've been a complete serial monogamist in my life. And I think it's probably partly because of always being around the idea of like, if you fall in love, hold on to it, and I think that I definitely carried that in my life.
That show definitely taught you how to stay together, as a couple.
And just picking up on what Michael said earlier, I feel like the show really taught me that if you're going through something, turn to a friend, turn to your loved ones. It's always better to work it out together with support, and just having that strong support system around you is the key to life and overcoming a lot of struggles.
And also, I know Michael, great advice that he always gave, because he cared about us as human beings, not just as actors on a show that would make money or make network money. He really cared about us, and he'd always say, don't let Hollywood get in the way of living your life. Make sure you live your life the way you want to first, and let that be an extension of it. So that's really unusual and really special. So.
It was actually really...
I liked being the little chocolate chip on the show.
It was great. I was just so happy that Sean finally had a girlfriend. I think it was our 4th season, and I just been making out with a different girl every week, and it was always just sort of a joke, And then Trina came in and auditioned, and I actually got to read with her for her final audition, and it was just like, I had such a talent crush on her. I was like, you're awesome. We're gonna have so much fun. And then the next couple years were just a blast. It was really, we were so comfortable. Like I just remember being really relaxed, and it was really fun.
I remember looking at you guys and thinking that, like, how are they getting along so well?
We sort of just vibe.
Yeah, we're good friends.
Yeah.
We have similar views in our personality too, and I think that helps a lot, And I was always just so happy about the impact it had, all the feedback I would get back. Honestly, a lot of African Americans told me they did not really watch Boy Meets World until they had this black girl on, and it made a lot of people who were in interracial relationships feel like, that's normal, that's okay, and we were just two human beings in love, and that's really what's important.